Late tonight, President Trump firing back.
No push, no pressure, no nothing. It's all a hoax, folks. It's all a big hoax.
The president defiant following the White House's release of this 5-page memo detailing his July phone call with Ukraine's president, Volodymyr Zelensky.
It's a joke. Impeachment for that? When you have a wonderful meeting or you have a wonderful phone conversation?
But Democrats say the president's words amount to an impeachable offense.
I'm glad the president released this transcript, but it is absolutely devastating. If the president gets away with this, I'm not sure what checks and balances remain.
That call begins with President Trump congratulating Zelensky on his election victory. The president, who at the time was withholding hundreds of millions of dollars of military aid, emphasizes that the United States is very, very good to Ukraine. When Zelensky says he's thankful for the U.S.'s military support and expresses his desire to buy more military equipment, President Trump says, "I would like you to do us a favor, though," asking for Ukraine to investigate matters involving the 2016 election meddling inquiry. The president saying, "I would like to have the Attorney General, William Barr, call you or your people, and I would like to get to the bottom of it."
Notes of that call indicate the President of the United States shaking down a foreign leader, essentially undermining the national security of this country for a personal political gain.
Tonight, Democrats zeroing in on the next portion of the conversation, where the president asks Zelensky for an investigation into the Bidens. President Trump says there's a lot of talk about Biden's son, that Biden stopped the prosecution, and a lot of people want to find out about that, so whatever you can do with the Attorney General would be great. Biden went around bragging that he stopped the prosecution, so if you can look into it, it sounds horrible to me. The president is referencing then Vice President Biden's push for the Ukrainian government to fire its top prosecutor, who had investigated a Ukrainian company that gave Biden's son Hunter a paid position on its board. But that prosecutor was widely viewed as weak on corruption, and there's no evidence Biden did anything wrong. The Justice Department says the president never spoke to Barr about the request.
You take a look at that call. It was perfect. I didn't do it. There was no quid pro quo.
Still, Democrat Adam Schiff argues the memo is far more damaging than he expected.
What those notes reflect is a classic mafia-like shakedown of a foreign leader.
But tonight, Ukraine's president, with President Trump today, says that's not how he viewed the conversation.
Have you felt any pressure from President Trump to investigate Joe Biden and Hunter Biden?
We spoke about many things, and I think, and you read it, that nobody pushed me. Yes.
In other words, no pressure.
President Trump.
Because you know what? There was no pressure.
And tonight, Republicans are defending the president.
I think it's very appropriate for the President of the United States to suggest that you got a corruption problem. From my point of view, to impeach any president over a phone call like this would be insane.
Now the president facing the prospect of impeachment over a call he made the day after special counsel Robert Mueller testified.
I thought we won. I thought it was dead. It was dead. The Mueller report, no obstruction, no collusion.
And Lester, tonight, members of the House and Senate Intelligence Committees are getting their first look at that whistleblower complaint that was just turned over by the White House tonight. As early as tomorrow, the whistleblower could meet with lawmakers the same day the Director of National Intelligence will testify.
Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here, and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.